All right, we're live again. And we're going to kick things off in just a second here. I'm just getting organized a little bit. And we'll get going. So we're in the process of, let me hit live here on Amazon. And you know what I just realized? My screwdrivers are not next to me, and I got to go find them real quick. So give me 1 second. Let me just go track those down. And while I am looking for my screwdrivers, what we are doing today, gosh, where did I put those things? They must be upstairs. What we're doing today is taking a look at these Acer R5 4500U laptops, you know, the new AMD Ryzen chips inside. And one of the things that we discovered in the course of our initial evaluation of these is that they're not performing as well as some of the other ones that we have looked at recently. So what I want to do, if I can find my, I got to find my screwdrivers. I should have found them before I started. Why did I not get them first? So what we're going to do in the course of this is see what the RAM configuration is on these. And that is the task at hand. And I just have to run upstairs real quick and find those screwdrivers. I think I know where I put them. So bear with me for 1 second here. I'm just going to mute my mic for 1 minute. And I found them. Here they are. They're in my secondary office here. So let me just run back downstairs here. And we will begin taking one of these apart. So I think what I'll do actually, so one of them has a GPU and the other one doesn't. They're otherwise the same. And so what we've got here, yeah, ran up and down the stairs, picked up another little notch of green on my watch. That's good. So let's see. This one has a RX 640 AMD Radeon GPU. And I'm told that this is close to like the MX 250 on the NVIDIA side. And the other one doesn't have that. So the advantage perhaps beyond the performance is that you might pick up a little extra oomph given that the GPU has its own dedicated video memory. So I think that's the difference. Now, what this one has in the box, and I'm guessing the other one does too, I'll give you my overhead view here, is that you have a little kit here for installing a SATA hard drive if you choose. It has an NVMe inside already. So what I want to do is just open it up and show you what it looks like, and then we're going to take it apart. That is the plan. So let's have a look. It actually looks a lot like the other one that we looked at earlier. So this is the new Aspire 5. And this is pretty much the same as the last version, except this one is running with the newer chip, which should perform a little better. Actually, it looks very similar. 1080p display, the whole nine. And the trick is to not get these two mixed up. So I was going to make sure I got the right one here. But it looks like it's going to be easy to get into it. So let's zoom out my other camera here, and we'll take a look. And I got some friends joining me today. So we've got, let me see who's coming into the chat this morning. Recipe Bob is here. Arif Hassan is here. Greg M is here. Russell is here. Anthony Bianco is here. Recipe wants to know if I was a Boy Scout. I was not, which is why I wasn't prepared. Monty, of course, points out correctly that Ryzen wants the dual channel RAM. And my suspicion is that the reason why this one isn't performing as well is because it is not configured that way. It might just have a single onboard. We'll see when we take it apart. Chanflay98 wants to know if I tried Flight Simulator. I have tried Flight Simulator. And I have to say, I am disappointed not in what it looks like, but the fact that they didn't bake in a lot of support for existing flight yoke and rudder pedal combinations. So I have like a cheapo pair from CH Products, and it's not some obscure brand. I mean, these have been around for a while. I'm just going to grab my magnetic screw holder thing. Those flight yokes have been around for a while, and it doesn't detect it when you first get going with it. And that was really disappointing because now I'm going to have to spend hours like configuring and calibrating and all this other stuff, and I just wanted to get in and go for it. And by comparison, X-Plane, which has been kind of the de facto flight simulator for a while, it works fine with X-Plane. Just plug them in and it detects them. And the other thing I like about X-Plane is that it supports VR, of course. And I think that's probably the best realism is to go with the VR. And what I really like about the VR on X-Plane is that it just feels real. It's so well done. I mean, the frame rate's not good, but just to be able to freely look around, because so much of flying, especially when you're flying visual, is being able to see your aircraft in position to the runway if you're coming around on a pattern approach or whatever. And if you can't replicate that, it's hard to make it work. Yes, recipe, I guess the Logitech ones work, but they're like, if you look at the list, there's so few that do work with it. So we got some comments coming in. Let's see here. So Rohan Leander is here. Metro North Rail fan is here. And Snowboy Gaming wants to know, is this a worthwhile upgrade from a 2500U laptop? I would say for sure. The 4500Us are super fast. I'm so impressed with them. Although this one, as I mentioned at the outset, this one has not been performing very well. And I suspect the reason is that they have it configured in single channel memory mode, which would lend itself to that. So we'll see when we take it apart here. By the way, these are available on Amazon right now. And if you click on the link in the description, it'll take you right over to where you can get these. And I'm hoping that it is just a single channel configuration. So we'll see. And right now I'm just kind of separating the case out here with my little spudger. Once you get one edge free, it's usually easy to pop it off. But you always want to be careful. As I mentioned to everybody, you don't want to force anything. You always want to be as gentle as possible. And the toolkit I'm using is this Oriya Precision toolkit. It's like, it costs nothing. And you have every like screwdriver bit you can imagine. And you get all these nice tools for opening up your laptops also. It's a great kit. I bought it during like Prime Day one year, and it's been something I use a lot. And you probably see it a lot here on the channel. And the other thing I recommend looking for is one of these magnetic screw holders. This laptop, it looks like all the screws are the same size, but sometimes when you take a laptop apart, the screws are different sizes. And this has a nice grid pattern on it, so you can get everything laid out. It's magnetic, so nothing moves around. And then you could also write with a marker on there also if you wanted to keep notes as to what you were working on there. And once I get this thing popped off, I'm going to record while we explore the interior. So I do want to post something on the Amazon listing for this, so I know people are curious. Now, the prior generation of this laptop was 4 gigabytes of RAM, and this one has 8. So my theory here is that it's single channel 8, but we'll find out for sure. This thing does not want to come up. There we go. Now we're starting to get there. Patience is a virtue in so many things, especially when you're taking these cases apart, because they're latched in with plastic, so you got to be really careful. Okay, so here's the interior, and as expected. Okay, so let me just hit record here because I just want to. Let me just go over here and just hit the record button real quick. call this Acer Aspire 5 2020. And okay, perfect. So let me just set the recording directory up there. Okay. 3, 2, 1. All right, let's have a look inside the new Acer Aspire 5 with the 4500U processor. Now, in our initial testing, as we were evaluating it, we were discovering that it wasn't running as well as other laptops with the same processor. And now it is clear as to why that is. They have built-in RAM, 8 gigabytes on the motherboard. And then there's a single slot here for upgrading for more RAM. And the reason why this is running so slow is that it's in single channel configuration unless you put another RAM module in here. And we're going to do that now, and then we'll test it again, and then in the full review, we'll be able to see what the performance differences are when you have that enabled. So my advice, just like the prior version of the Aspire 5, is to make sure you get an additional stick of RAM, an 8 gigabyte stick. That will certainly get you up to the peak performance on what this has to offer. Okay, perfect. And I'm just going to mark that clip real quick. I'm just going to upload this to Amazon in a little bit. I do videos to Amazon too, by the way, in case you're wondering. And let me turn down my camera a little bit. Okay. And I'm just going to label this clip here. This is going to be... And I suspect that the non-GPU, so I'm going to put the RAM in both of them because I suspect that the non-GPU one is also going to be in this bucket. So now we need to figure out, so I've got this RAM here from Crucial that I bought a while back. This is DDR4 2666. I would imagine this would work with it. We'll find out. So we'll just pop this in real quick. And now we'll go to 16 gigs, and in addition to having additional RAM, we're also going to end up with more storage. And before with greater performance because we're in dual channel mode. But before I do that, I just want to make sure this is indeed off before I put the RAM in, because if it was just sleeping, I'm pretty sure Jake probably turned it off, but just to be totally safe here. Yeah, I think it's... Yeah, we're good. Okay. All right, so let's pop that RAM in real quick, and then we'll put it back together. And then we'll run a test on it. We'll just run the 3D mark on it again, and then I'll probably have to recapture some of the game footage because of that issue. But this was good to know out of the gate. And scheduling, we were so crazy this past week that I didn't have a chance to unbox. I usually like to unbox these and get them all configured. But this might be a good way to kind of show the differences in performance between the two. And the other one that we got has the GPU on board, so it performed a little better, but the question will be, will it perform even better with the RAM in dual channel mode? So that'll be something to try to flush out of this here. So let's move my screws out of the way here and open this back up. And what we'll do next is we're going to plug it in and see what we can get out of this thing. What I probably should have done was pointed out the hard drive configuration. Patrick Chang wants to know if I can use the purple plastic opener as a guitar pick. Yeah, and actually it's vice versa. You could use the guitar pick as a spudger tool. They are reversible in their use case scenarios here, for sure. Now this one, this thing is just almost identical to the prior version. So you've got USB-C, 2 USB 3s, you got gigabit Ethernet here. So it's nice. I mean, one of the nice things with a bigger laptop is that you get a little bit extra, extra room for additional accessories and whatnot. All right, so let's power it on and see if it boots up stably here with the 16 gigs. Let's see if I can jump into the BIOS real quick and take a closer look at that. I never get the right BIOS thing. We'll take a look when we boot. And I'm just going to put this down over here for now So remember, this is the one without the GPU. So here we go. And let me just pop into it real quick. And it's already feeling snappy. And this is the funny thing. What happens is that we review so many of these Lenovo laptops. My account that I use, we have like an account just for testing these units out on Microsoft. It carries the wallpaper over every time. All right, so let's go over to Steam real quick here. And I think Jake had installed, is my keyboard not working? There we go. Jake had installed the 3D Mark benchmark, I believe, on here. If not, I have it on another drive. So we'll pop that open and we'll see what happens. Anish asks a question, what's the difference between Aspire and Swift? So the Aspires tend to be lower cost and larger, and the Swifts are smaller. So this is a 15-inch, I believe. And the Swift that I reviewed recently is a little better build quality. It's all metal versus plastic on this one, although I think the top lid here is metal. It's just a higher end machine. But you know, and I say this a lot on the channel. You know, the trade-offs are usually size and weight, or big and cheap. Because if you go big and cheap like this one. Why isn't Steam loading? If you go big and cheap like this one does, there it goes, you get, you know, pretty much the same performance, we would assume, but you get it in a lower cost package. It's just heavier and not as attractive to walk around with. All right, so I got to get this thing on my network real quick, so let's connect it to the network. I suppose I could just plug in my Ethernet, but we'll just connect to the Wi-Fi for now. And we'll get that going. And let's see what happens here. Yeah, there is no SD card on here. You are correct. Although, you know, it's probably just as easy to get a USB-C card reader. All right, so it's not connecting to my network for some reason. Why is that? Yeah, every once in a while, something gets a little flaky with my Wi-Fi. I have that Unify thing. Maybe I typed the password in wrong. That could be what happened. Let's see if we can get it connected here. And then we will keep going. All right, we're connected. So let's retry the connection here. And hopefully Steam will show up down here in the lower, there we go, okay. So now we're coming back up. And the first thing I want to do is run the 3D Mark CloudGate test and the TimeSpy test, because we ran this earlier. And I will pull up the results that we got in a second, just to show you what we're finding with this. But I suspect that now that we've taken it apart and saw that it only has that single RAM slot, I am pretty sure that that's the reason that it's not performing as well. And see, here's the rabbit hole you fall into with this stuff. So now that we know that this one is single channel, so is the other one. And what I might do, I'm just trying to think about how to best present these, because there is one with the GPU, and there will be a performance difference. So I probably need to run this on the other one also. I'm not sure I'll be able to get to that this morning, but we'll get it going there. Patrick Chang makes a very good point about the nature of life these days. So Patrick points out that big and bulky was a concern before carrying these to work or to the coffee shop. Now big and bulky is doesn't matter, because we never get out of bed. It's very true. And I will say this for Acer, is that, you know, they really are kind of the budget line, right? I mean, their machines are not always the highest build quality, but the displays they offer are nice. Now, it's not a touch display, You know, and like I said, it's a plastic build quality kind of thing, but it's 1080p. I mean, it's not bad. A 15-inch 1080p display looks good. The 720p's at this size do not. And I just hate, though, like, getting all this notification spam is not cool. All right, and it's updating Steam information. While that's going, I'm going to personalize my background here, because I don't want to confuse people by having while we're reviewing an Acer laptop. So what's going on with Steam here, folks? Jim Harvey wants to know, what's the difference between the Swift and the Aspire display? Not much. I mean, if anything, the 14-inch Swift at 1080p will look a little sharper than this because you have more pixel density. Because remember, that's a 14-inch display, so you have, it's an inch less on the diagonal, so the pixels are going to be denser. So it might, if you were to look at the two next to each other, the brightness might be about the same. These are never terribly bright displays. But the sharpness, it'll look a little sharper. And Steam is not cooperating here. Let's close Steam and reload it. This is the curse of the live stream. Nothing ever works right when we're doing something live. It's just how it usually goes. So we'll let that percolate there for a minute. So Manish Chowdhury wants to know the best budget laptop. Well, I will say that the predecessor to this one, which is also called the Aspire 5. I'm just going to reboot this thing. It's also called the Aspire 5, which has the prior generation Ryzen chip in it. That one on Amazon is selling for $349. You do have to upgrade the RAM because just like this one, it comes equipped as single channel, and that one only starts at 4. So you get a 4 gig module, $350 plus another 20 or 30, whatever that costs for the module, and you got a great laptop. And it looks just like this one. Backlit keys, 1080p display. So good stuff. Thank you, Jim, for your nice comment. And it looks like we had the same comment or question from Movie Fan about the best budget laptop. Yeah, I still think that Acer is still the best. This one will be, but what's interesting, granted now this one has better performance, okay? So this one performs better than the prior model that looks just like it, but this is also $200 more. So $349, you get something that, you know, is probably 30% slower than this one, but it's still, you know, it's still good. All right, here we go. So let's go. It looks like he uninstalled 3D Mark, so we got to reinstall that. But I have a hard drive somewhere in my mess of junk down here that has all the Steam stuff on it. But where did it go? That is the question. So let me try to track it down. Bear with me, folks. Let me grab that other hard drive. I'm just not prepared for class today, everybody. I'm sorry. I just said, you know what? I'm going to go turn the cameras on and spend some more time on these laptops this morning, and I just was not thinking about all the things that I needed to have near me to get this work done. I could just download it again. I think I have enough space on that computer to do that, because it looks like Jake installed it and then had to uninstall it, likely because of space. These things have 256 gigs of storage by default. You have an NVMe drive on there, which is great because it's nice and fast. And what's been amazing is just how the price of these things have just declined so dramatically, which is great for consumers. So even on the low end now, you're getting great performance on the low end now, which is awesome. I mean, it's amazing because I've been doing this now for, doing the PC reviews in earnest for probably about 6 years or so. And it's remarkable where things are now. So this drive might have what I'm looking for on it. Let's try that out real quick and see. And this is one of my favorite drive enclosures that is no longer manufactured. It kills me. This is called the stock plop. It's like this aluminum sheath. You pop your drive in, and you've got an external solid state. It's just awesome. So it is good stuff. Is that the, oh. Now I just made a big mistake here with this. This is another point of interest. The right-hand side port is USB 2. So it'll run slower than if you plug it into the left-hand side. So never plug anything that needs speed into the right-hand side of these laptops. And here's another trick. When you have one of these things, let's go over to the settings. You can, what's nice about Steam, and this is why I always prefer to buy games on Steam. The Steam libraries are portable in that you can have an external drive with a bunch of games on it and you can move it around to different computers without having to go through the download process again. So what I'm going to do here is just point it at this folder that has Steam games on there, and you'll see now I've got a bunch more that just popped up on screen, including 3D Mark. So we're just going to run 3D Mark. Let me make sure I've got some of the other things that might interfere with performance closed out here. So we're going to close out the Epic Store for now and launch 3D Mark. And there isn't, yep, there it goes. And you might have to go through some of the initial like .NET things or whatever, but for the most part, you don't have to endure another multi-gigabyte download. So Monty, that prior version, Amazon sells out of them so quickly. I see it on my affiliate feed. They do get them in, but they immediately sell out. And I think it's crazy. So I'll see it cycle through. So they are still getting them, but you're right. A lot of the third-party bottom feeders suck them up, and that's not good. So yeah, you shouldn't pay more than $349 for the prior generation one. But this one is $549, so it's more. But I suspect what will happen is that, next year this will be the new $349 one, or later this year. So Rohan wants to know, why do most Ryzen 4000 laptops have soldered RAM and only a few have 2 RAM slots? I think the reason is that there's a cost factor involved in using memory that's not soldered on. We're going to, I guess, run TimeSpy first because I wasn't paying attention. So, what happens with these is that, they're made on very tight margins. So they're selling these typically for well under, in this case, under $600, but in many cases, well under $500. And as you scale up, like if you were to see the volume that a company like Acer or Lenovo does for computer sales, it's ridiculous. And if you're adding even 50 cents or 25 cents to the cost of each unit, when you scale that up, the impact on profits is enormous. And it's not been something that consumers are turning their backs on. I mean, certainly for us enthusiasts, we want upgradability, we want everything else. But for most consumers who are shopping, and these are the people that I hear from on this YouTube channel, for most consumers who are just shopping for a laptop, they don't care about upgradability. They don't care about anything, really. They just want a cheap laptop that works. And to some degree, they use it for 2 years, 3 years until it falls apart, and they buy another one. So that's the issue. But you'll see, if you look over on the gaming laptops out there, it's rare to find one that doesn't have upgradable RAM because gaming consumers want that, and gaming itself is far more profitable than one of these things are. So, that's where you'll see them reacting more to consumer demands because consumers want upgradable laptops on the gaming side. So Lewis just got the notification from YouTube. So if you want to be notified more efficiently as to when I go live, click on the link in the description to go over to Amazon and follow me there. And you'll get notified through your Amazon app on your phone. Because I broadcast out to both. So that's the best way to go. The YouTube notifications are terrible and remain so. Patrick Chang is wondering, as we're running this test, random production question, do you think it's possible to run a live stream like you're doing with a Mac or do you think PC is the best way to go? I will say this. You all know I love my Macs, but the PC is better. And it is better because OBS, if you're going to the free route, works better on the PC than it does on the Mac. And then beyond that, vMix, which is what I'm using now, is so amazing. It only runs on Windows. I mean, it's just unbelievably good. I can't tell you how good it is. Because I'm going to do a video on this soon, probably as one of my wrap-up videos. I was going to buy a new TriCaster just because mine was getting old. And I decided to try vMix out for 2 weeks off a laptop, and it did everything my TriCaster did. So I built my own production computer, and I saved myself like $4,000 or $5,000 easily. So that was a no-brainer, and I've been very pleased with it. Yeah, so for live streaming, 8 years ago, the Mac was it, but Windows is doing better there. And I think partly because there's more options for hardware. You can build your own stuff. Even the TriCasters are running on Windows. Fabian Martinez bought one of those Acers at $349 in July and upgraded the RAM to 16 gig, and it's awesome. Yeah, it's a good machine. It's a really good machine. I mean, it performs better than its price would suggest, for sure. And this one, I believe, will be in that bucket when they lower the price on it. DC147 says he just wants one that works, but with the desktops, he likes to have upgrade control. Monty points out that 1 terabyte, yeah, the SSDs for the terabyte things are coming down a lot. By the way, I'm going to change my chat. YouTube is filtering out chats far more aggressively than it used to, so I'm missing all sorts of people's comments. I'm just switching now to the live chat here so I get more of them in. So hopefully I don't miss more of these. And by the way, we're just running a benchmark right now to see what goes on. However, I'm seeing here on the bottom, it's running at about 6.5 frames per second, which you might say, my gosh, that's so bad, but that's actually better than what we were getting before on it. So I'm going to pop in, once this test finishes up, we're going to take a look at my benchmark sheet and see what we get. So right now, when we got this, it had only 8 gigs of RAM, single channel. Now it's 16 dual channel. And because it only needed 1 stick, I've still got my other 8 gig module here that will probably pop in the other one in a minute. And the big question will be whether or not we see a huge difference between the two. And we'll find that out when these benchmarks finish up. So let me just go over to my benchmark spreadsheet here. And we'll get this pulled up. But yeah, YouTube has been getting very aggressive with the chat filtering lately. It's been kind of a problem. And we'll let that keep running here. Geomat says the 4000s have very good thermals. Yeah, they do run a lot cooler. And we're seeing better consistency out of the performance. So Movie Fan asks, HP or Lenovo, which one is better or faster? You know what I find is that for the most part, these machines are very much in line with each other, from one machine to the next, partly because they have mostly the same components. And I found that you should find, when you're in the category, when you get out of the budget category and you're looking, at an HP or a Lenovo at the mid-range or high-end, it's to find the best mix of hardware design and price. And so, for example, when I was looking for a new gaming laptop, which has become more a production machine than a gaming laptop these days because it runs vMix so well, I went with the Lenovo, partly because the price was right and the performance was there. You know what I mean? Like and the hardware design was what I was looking for. I wanted something smaller and thinner and whatnot. And Metro North fan, I know you're not spamming, but YouTube is filtering out your chat, and I am on the live chat here, which is showing everybody's chat, and I just don't see I see that you said you sent one, but it's not popping up on the window here. So try sending it again. Let's see if it pops up. Ashish wants to know what the price of this laptop is. This one is $549 at the moment. But as with everything, prices come down. Okay, so we got a score. And what I'm going to do now is pivot over to, what happened here? My vMix stopped transmitting here. Give me 1 second. I'm going to try to get this up on screen for you all to see. Let me reopen that. NDI. Hopefully that pops up. Huh, just stopped working. Let me reshuffle the software. My little MacBook is starting to get like old. So I like it because it's so small and it works really well in the spot that it operates in, but it's starting to give me trouble. And I think what I might do is just disconnect might be my Ethernet adapter is just not liking the NDI stuff. So let's try this again. Because I want to show you what I'm looking at here, but it's not cooperating. So let me wire into our NDI box here. So we'll just go in through the box versus the desktop capture. There's always something that stops working here. The good news is that this is performing better. And I suspect that this might actually be performing better than the one with the GPU did. So that's going to require some additional investigation here. All right, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in on this, and I will show you where this is going to fall in. So this is my spreadsheet. You can find this by going to Lon.TV/benchmarks, and that will take you right into what we've got going on here. What did he do to this thing? Whoa. What is going on with my computer today? See this? It's not supposed to do that. Yeah, it's at the normal size here. Let's see, view, zoom, just like kind of reset the video. There we go. Jake didn't do anything, it was me. Okay, so let me zoom in on this a little bit here. So when we ran this before, so this will give you a good sense of where this one falls in. So the Aspire 5 that we looked at last year, that $349 one, it got a score of 474. This new one, the next iteration, which costs more, 970. Okay, so let's scroll up to where Jake had put those scores in. So that's the GPU. So here, yeah, so we're going to have to stick that RAM in the other one because the one with the GPU came in at the same score. If anything, this one, yeah, we've got to totally put that stick of RAM in there. Because it may be that the GPU doesn't really add anything to the mix, given how fast the built-in graphics are, which lends some discussion as to whether or not it was using the GPU when it ran. But I would imagine it did, because if it's single channel, we should have seen all right, so let's put this in here like that. And all right, so now we're going to start filling this in. So 940, 5.74, and 4.80, and 13.46. Now, here's what's interesting about just adding that stick of RAM. So look at these scores, okay? By the way, you can go to this at Lon.TV/benchmarks if you want to see it on your screen. So check it out. 5.74, 4.8, and 13.46. So now we're going to go down here. Here, so let me just make this, I'm going to highlight it for a second so you can compare the two. All right, so that's this one now as configured. Same computer now with just one stick of RAM. And he's got that mixed up because the non-GPU one did not have the RX 640 in it. Okay. So single stick of RAM. Look at the difference. I mean, that is a huge, huge difference. So if you're buying this without 2 sticks of RAM installed, look at that. I mean, it's not even in the same ballpark. It's still better than a dual channel version of the old one, but not much better. But you put 2 sticks in, look at the difference. That's it. So, you know, just as it's sold, it's hindered. But you put that stick of RAM in, another 8 gigs, boom. Amazing, right? So that is something. So we're going to run the other test now, which is the CloudGate test. So give me 1 second on that, folks. Where did my dashboard go? Here it is. Okay. Okay, so it looks like Railfan's message finally came through now. He ordered his 22nd laptop, which is a Dell Inspiron 11 3000 with an A6 and the Radeon R4 graphics. Yeah, the Radeon stuff, they've really, they've got it figured out. They really do. The graphics are substantially better. Okay, so we're going to run the CloudGate test. And what I'm going to have to do now is like rerun all the games on it. And I'm really curious now as to how the one with the GPU does. And what I might do on the other one after I put the RAM in is just run the tests on that, because if the tests come back the same, which I actually expect they will come back very similar, there might not be much of an argument for buying the GPU-based machine unless you want dedicated graphics memory. I guess that would be the only reason for it. All right, so now we're going to go down to the CloudGate test, which, by the way, they are no longer supporting, but I have so much history with CloudGate that I like to run it regardless. So let's go to CloudGate, and we're not going to include the demo, and we're going to run that sucker. Okay, so we're going to let that one rip and see what we get there. But isn't that something? Like, that's a huge difference in performance between the two on TimeSpy. Huge. Just for having that extra stick of RAM in there. This is a 4500U, everybody, in case you're wondering. And if you're curious as to how it stacks up, it actually comes in right where I kind of expect it to. So you look at the top one here. So remember we looked at the HP Envy in performance mode, very close to that one. And that one will cost you a couple $100 more, right? So that's good. And it's in the margin of error versus the IdeaPad Flex 5, which is currently, I think, the best value of the mix on these R5 4500Us. The Flex 5 has a pen, and it's a 2-in-1 versus this one just being a laptop. But this is what I was expecting, and initially this is what we got. And the difference is that the Lenovo, although I don't believe the RAM is upgradable on the Lenovo, they do have the RAM configured in dual channel, as does HP on theirs. And that's why those scores are higher than the way this one comes in initially. So this one, you buy it, you got to put more RAM in it. And at that point, you might as well get the Lenovo IdeaPad, which I think costs about the same. Let me add it to the Amazon feed so you can see what that looks like. Let me just find it on the Amazon chat here. Yeah, it looks like that's another one that sells out, but I'm pretty sure that one was coming in at around the price point of this one. So that's one to look for. This test runs faster, by the way, so we're good there. So let's go over to CloudGate, and boom, what a high score, 15,877. And let's pivot over to my spreadsheet. And again, you can go to Lon.TV/benchmarks anytime you want and look at my whole database of these things as we've been acquiring them. All right, so let's go down to the Aspire 5. I'm guessing he's probably going to be in, let's see, let me just do a quick search. I have so many on here, so many different versions of the Aspire 5. They don't change the name of it. It just gets rebranded every time. Did he not put it in here? Let's see. Oh, here it is. Okay, so this is the GPU one. Here we go, non-GPU. So before, so let's highlight this one. So before, he got 10,989. Okay. And let's go now slot this in where it belongs now, which is way up here. And it's going to be right alongside some of the other ones we looked at, right? So 15,000. Actually, you know, it did a little better than the one with the 4700U. Wow. Yeah, sometimes you get, you know, based on the thermals, you get weird results on some of these things. So yeah, so it's right up there. So we're going to stick it right up here. And I'm going to make note of something here in a second as we work our way through. So this is the Acer Aspire 5 2020 and non-GPU. And this is an AMD Ryzen R5 4500U. And we got 15,877. We got 99.34 FPS, 92.01 FPS, and then we got 25.58 FPS. These CPUs are crazy powerful. That last test is the CPU test. Now, you're going to look at this and say, but Lon, it's got a higher score than a GTX 1050 Ti. And yes, because the score is a collection of the 3 tests that it runs. So if it does better on one of these tests versus another machine, then you'll see that impact the score. So when you dive into the graphics scores here, you can see the 1050 Ti is still a much more powerful graphics platform. You know, it's more than twice as fast on the graphics. But because this chip is, I believe, a 6-core chip, I might be mistaken, but it's got more cores. So this was a dual-core i3, and you just have more cores that can process things in parallel, essentially. So that's why it got the score that it did. So when we do the review, we will point out that, you know, the graphics scores here are, you know, are one piece of the puzzle. So you can't say that this is as fast as a 1050 equipped computer, because it isn't. But it does give you some idea of that. So there you go. Okay. If anyone wants to know what the price is and where to order it, I've got an Amazon link right in the video description. It'll take you to this live stream, so you can watch that. Oh, you're right, Monty, thank you for that suggestion. I'm going to make a note of that also. 2 sticks. Okay, good. Thank you for that. That's why I do these live, so I don't forget these things. Okay, so now let's shut this one down, and we're going to take the other one apart real quick. And I'm going to put the screws back in this one, just so we don't lose things, because things get lost down here. So let's shut her down, and we're going to do a quick swapperoo. And we'll get this one secured. Now, where did I put those screws? I put it down somewhere. Where did I put those screws? Oh, here they are. Of course, I put the box down right on top of it. Way to go, Lon. Okay. The good news is that all the screws are still here, I think. So let's put this back together now. And this will just take a second. I just want to not lose things, because I bought these laptops, by the way. And one of you, actually 2 of you, will end up owning these laptops eventually. So I want to make sure that we return them in the condition in which they were delivered here. I think I lost a screw or 2. See, this is why I am the worst role model for people in computer work, because I put these things down in this magnetic screw holder, and then without thinking, it's good that these screws are all the same size. Without thinking, I put the box on top of the thing here. Now everything's out of whack. So let's put it all back together here real quick. And then I'm going to have to take it apart again to take the RAM back out, because I like to keep the RAM around, because we get in these computers lacking dual channel memory all the time, and it's good to have some memory available that can be installed in these things. So let's put it back together real quick, and we'll move on to the next one. And I see some folks asking for the links to the benchmark. It is Lon.TV/benchmarks. All right, so got that in there. Okay, so let's just keep adding the screws back in. And we'll put this thing back together. Anthony Wilder wants to know if there'll be a giveaway on this. No, but I will be selling these at a reasonable price. So you'll get them for less money than they would cost new. And I do that to subsidize the costs of acquiring these things, because part of the problem is the low-end machines are not heavily marketed because the profit margins are so tight on these things. So I can get them from Acer eventually, but by the time I get them, it's like it's like almost a year later, and they just can't get me stuff quickly. Lenovo's good. I much prefer to have them, and that's what Acer does also. They lend you the laptop, and I much prefer to borrow them and send them back because it's the least expensive for me. It's the least, there's less transactions involved, all that stuff. So that's my preference. But what happens is that on these ones, I can never get them quick enough from Acer. So I buy them, and then we review them and sell them again. And what usually works is that between the affiliate revenue and the sale of the laptop, I lose obviously on the cost. The cost for me is the difference between what I paid for it new and what I sell it for used. But I found over the years that it's a worthwhile business expenditure because I usually end up ahead. And it's interesting, though, is that you don't always end up ahead. So sometimes you don't do well. Sometimes it's kind of like the lottery, and a lot of times it involves the YouTube algorithm. So we'll see what happens there. Metro North says, I'm not a big fan of the loaners because I would not feel right about sending it back because of the pandemic. Yeah, I'm not too worried about like the touch stuff. I mean, they clean them. Whenever I get the loaner, so typically like Lenovo, when they send me one, it hasn't gone to anyone else yet. By the way, the power adapter on the GPU version is bigger, which you would expect because it consumes more power. But they're doing pretty good cleaning them, and I practice good hygiene here. I was a germaphobe before all this started, so I'm pretty good at keeping things clean. Although I will say that the computer fairs, the CESs and the stuff in New York I go to, you're far more likely to get sick at one of those things, which I certainly did, than anywhere else. All right, so let's take this one apart. Now this is going to look pretty much the same, except we're going to see one additional chip on this one. So let's do a quick opening. It looks, it's going to look exactly the same inside. Monty says those loaners tend to go from person to person. Actually, not as my experience has not been that, Monty. Usually, what happens is so anything that I get for a loaner goes back to where it came. So, for example, like the Dells I typically get after the first round go out. So, like the XPS 15 that I got in the other day, which is on the docket for this week or next week. That one had a label underneath the one that I got, and it was at the Verge prior to me, but it had gone back, and it was super clean. Like, it was totally clean. In fact, the guy at Dell told me that they clean them pretty thoroughly. And honestly, like after a couple days in transit, the virus doesn't live long on surfaces. And there's an interesting article there's actually been a lot of interesting articles in the New York Times about all the things that they're learning related to immunity. I mean, I think we're going to find out a lot more about how the human immune system works after this is over with. And it also shows you that, how they always joke that, there's no cure for the common cold. They haven't cured the common cold because it's not profitable to cure the common cold. This doesn't cause enough disruption that it's worth doing. However, it looks as though prior exposure to colds, which are also coronaviruses, apparently has made some people less susceptible to the virus and might explain, and it's all might, but it might explain why some people have minimal symptoms or no symptoms at all because they've been exposed to similar viruses in the past. And there's actually some evidence of T-cell response out there against COVID-19 in blood samples that were taken far before the pandemic began, which is fascinating stuff. So I think we're going to learn a lot about all of this. And like I said, I feel like I'm pretty sure I got it at CES this year. I took an antibody test and it came back negative. I actually took 2 of them. But the tests aren't that good, you know? So I'm not taking anything for granted. I wear my mask in public for sure. And I don't go out unnecessarily. In fact, I've been mostly homebound to begin with, but I used to do stuff because I'm on my local board of education, so I do a lot of things related to that just to get out of the house. And I like serving the public and serving my community, but a lot of those things we haven't been able to do as frequently. So I've been very good about not taking unnecessary risks as well. But I think, after, you'll see how these vaccines come along. Even if the vaccines are not 100% effective, it will help in that you might see reduced symptoms amongst the most vulnerable populations, and that's when you can start seeing things return to normal. So my prediction is that, unlike prior pandemics, our response has been very much the same. However, we know more about vaccines and technologies that I think will shorten the duration and the economic damage versus how this might have turned out 100 years ago. And hopefully after this, we can figure out ways to not have it happen like this again. But I'm an optimist by nature. That's just my thing. All right, so let me just finish getting this case off. Just like before, we've got to be very careful, right? We've got to be very slow. Yeah, I think, I've said to people, don't count on the vaccine, right? Because they haven't finished testing, you know what I mean? It's still out there. It looks like it's going to be a two-prong thing. So you get one shot, and then you have to get another one, a booster, a little bit after that. There's going to be different types of vaccines that'll be available. And this is the trick, is that most of them will require a booster. And from what I'm hearing from my sources, is that it's going to be a logistical nightmare, because if there's 15 or 10 different vaccines and each requires its own booster, you got to make sure that the booster you end up getting is the one by the same manufacturer from before. So it'll be tricky. Okay, I got it open. Sorry, I've been ignoring the chat because I've been just focused on getting this open. So I think Off Grid Prepper had a question for me from Australia. So have at it. She just wants to know if I'll review the Acer Nitro. I don't typically get in those Acer Nitros, but I can talk to my contact over there and see. By the way, in case you're wondering, I'll do a quick recording here. 3, 2, 1. Now I've got the other one open here that has the GPU, and here you can see that GPU is right under the copper heat pipe here. One other thing of note is that these have the ability to add an additional 2.5-inch SATA drive, and in the box, if I can find it here real quick, you get a little kit that you can, here it is. Let me just grab it out of the box here. You get a little kit that allows you to install that drive in the spot there. You also have an NVMe slot over here for a faster solid-state drive. So there is a good amount of expandability on here, but I was disappointed to see that they ship with only 1 stick of RAM. Okay, so let's put that stick in real quick. Get it lined up. All right. Upgraded. So now, let's put this one back together. So Off-Grid wants to know what I think will happen if the world stops trading with China. I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be less trade with China. I think some of the other emerging economies might, might do better. And I think there's been an appetite for additional options for doing business overseas. Vietnam is certainly up and coming, even on technology products. And a big issue for many years has been the intellectual property. So I've talked to people at very large tech companies at the different shows that I go to, and they actually do business with Foxconn because they're based out of Taiwan, and there's some additional liabilities that there's additional liabilities on Foxconn as a Taiwanese manufacturer related to IP theft. IP theft is a big deal, for sure. And I think some of that behavior is what is hurting them right now. And it may not all be from the government either. It could just be how some of these companies have operated. Okay, so we're going to boot up this one now. This is the GPU-based one. And we're going to run those two benchmarks again, and then I got to head out. And we'll see how this works. So Greg M says that so I think that study about the length of immunity, or that report, the press, here's the problem I've seen going on here is that the media, and I don't like saying the media, but the media has not been doing well, nor has the public health people in communicating, because that report was that the antibodies are detectable for 3 months, give or take. And they're assuming that, based on that's the length of the, of the immunity, or the amount that they can guarantee, or whatever. But they think that the immunity is actually far longer lasting than that, and they don't actually know when it would end. And that's the problem. They just don't know, and we really won't know. The difference is, I think, with this, is that they do know that the virus doesn't seem to mutate as much as an influenza one does. So the prior pandemics are all kind of echoing through our environment, right? Like the prior flus. And we don't have large-scale illness from those, because the viruses themselves got weaker and our immunity went up, because a virus that is too effective at killing people doesn't spread quickly, and its imperative is to spread. But this one, I don't know. I mean, we're not going to know until next year, I think, what the long-term immunity is. I would suspect, and I'm not an immunologist, but I've talked to a few, I would suspect that if the immunity is not long-lasting, there will be some residual T-cell memory of the virus, and it all depends on what it mutates into. But it's going to be a really lousy flu season this year because of it. Because which one do you have, right? So I'm getting my flu shot this week, or next week. Okay. So Ashish, I think I answered that question earlier about the Aspire and Swift laptops. The Aspire are bigger and less expensive. And I'm just trying to log into my Steam account here, and we'll run those two tests again. So the big thing that I'm curious about with this is, if the score is the same with the GPU, then there's no point in getting this one with the GPU built in. Because I have a feeling that we're going to see a very similar score to what we saw last time, even with the added RAM. Maybe the CPU test will do a little better. Let's see, from John Mochi here. In general, are business laptops made better than all other laptops? I think that they tend to be. Whenever I think business laptop, I think ThinkPad. To think about it. It's funny, Steam is just not being cooperative this morning here, is it? I'm going to reboot, because we did that before and it seemed to do better. So let's just do a quick restart. So I think ThinkPad, and they tend to be better built. Like this one, I will say the cheap ones have been getting better insofar as their build quality is concerned, but they're mostly plastic, right? The keyboard's not great. If you drop this one, it's gonna break, right? If you drop it the right way. Anthony Wouter wants to know, when will I sell these? Well, I will sell these when I am done reviewing them, obviously. And because of the, Jake is still doing stuff for us. He's working just as much, but he's doing things off-site. So typically I would have Jake get these things packaged up and ready to go. So I haven't been able to do as much of that prep work just because I'm trying to keep the videos going. So I hope after the review is done, we'll have these ready to go for sale, a week or so after the review's over with. And I'll be actually eager to get these out the door just because, I've got about $1,200 now wrapped up in these two for one video. So I want to recoup that cost quickly. There we go. So we're going to go back to my settings here. And we're just going to add that directory. And we'll go to here and hit Steam root. Now remember, this one has the same processor, but it has that GPU. And this is which GPU does this one have? This one has the RX 640 GPU inside. And the tricky thing is that they both look exactly the same. So I'm going to put a label, I'm going to put one of those little stickers on here so I know which one is which. All right, so let's load up 3D Mark. And we're going to do the exact same two tests we did last time in the same order. So we'll be very consistent here and see what we get. And I suspect that we will see a better CPU score, but I am thinking the graphics score might be the same, which will beg the question, why bother putting a discrete GPU in this thing at all? So we'll have to see what it comes up with. So Luca asks, what is the ideal NDI streaming studio setup, at least 4 cameras, with a $30,000 budget? Well, I would say if you have that much to spend, that's where you get into TriCaster territory. And the reason why I say that, oh, wait a second here. Okay, your graphics, yeah, okay, it's got, okay, good. Okay, so it's detected the GPU. So let's run this sucker, and we'll see what happens. So I think when you're spending $30,000 on production hardware, that's when you go into the TriCaster, because you likely have a very mission-critical operation. That is a package where you have the hardware and the software supported by NewTek. And for me right now, my software purchase is supported by vMix, but the hardware I built myself. And so I'm okay with that because it's just me. I mean, if I was a company that was doing this for other people, like if people were depending on my hardware reliability to have a proper live stream, I would likely spend the money to get a TriCaster, because again, it's designed for that, versus my computer right now that's running all this is actually a home-built gaming computer. This is designed to play games, not to run video. It does a great job of running video, but nonetheless, it's not perfect. And especially if I was doing broadcast or something, I would be going TriCaster all the way. And I found on vMix the NDI stuff works fine, but it does get a little problematic sometimes when you start loading up a lot of different NDI sources at the same time. It's very CPU intensive, and I have a suspicion that the TriCaster might handle the NDI stuff more efficiently. And by the way, the GPU version here is like $50 more, so it's not a huge price gap between the two. And I'm also hearing the fan kick on more, obviously, because there's more heat being generated by both the CPU and GPU working together here. Anish, I don't know if I'll be able, it's hard to say what I can review versus not, because it's all a matter of what the companies send in. So I would like to try to get one of those in, but I'm not sure I will be able to. But I'll try to get one in. Highlander says, is NewTek still around? Yes, they are. In fact, they just got acquired by another company. And they went from the video toaster to the TriCaster. And now what they're doing, and I think this is where they made a very smart decision, because I think they saw the writing on the wall in the hardware. So they've invented a video standard called NDI. And right now, that's how I'm bringing in, I'll pull this up real quick. So for example, this screen is not my computer directly attached to my video capture hardware. It's actually coming in over the network via NDI. It's a very low latency broadcast video standard that brings video in over a local area network to a video switcher, just like a directly attached camera would be. So this camera is directly attached, but if I had it coming in over NDI, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. It's amazing. And so they're licensing that technology to other companies like vMix, which is the software I'm using now. So NewTek is still making money even with vMix competing at the lower end of the market. But I think if you're at a high budget, I think NewTek wants to be in the higher budget category, more margin there, remember, than not. And I think they can license their technology to the lower folks in the world and make more money, because they were not getting any piece of vMix before. Now there's going to be money from vMix going back to NewTek on every sale to pay for the NDI license. So really, really smart stuff. Music Now wants to know, how do we get to the spreadsheet? If you go to Lon.TV/benchmarks, that will take you right in. You can view it and see about 6 years worth of data we've been collecting here in the studio. Murat asks, does the GPU have its own VRAM? Yes, it has 2 gigabytes of VRAM. So I could see that being the advantage, in that you can free up more system memory, and that VRAM technically would be more power, it would be faster. What would be interesting is that you could run vMix, for example, on this machine, because you do have a GPU, but there's not a lot of RAM there, so it's hard to say how it would function. Movie fan, recommendation for a good VPN. I would roll your own. That's what I would do. I use VPNs just to protect my privacy, and I just VPN back to myself and encrypt myself right out through my own connection. And pretty soon, I'm going to have my 2 gigabit Comcast thing here, so that'll be great. I'm looking forward to that. All right, and Anju Pundir is here. Hello. We're just running through some benchmarks here on another one of these Aspire laptops to get a baseline. And we'll see where we end up. But I'm guessing here that we're not going to see a big difference in performance. We just need to confirm that the GPU was in fact being used. But I can tell you, I'm watching it right now, the frame rates seem a little lower than what we had on the non-GPU one. What a conundrum, right? So Music Now, if you want to see the price, there's a description, a video description. There's a link right to Amazon where you can watch the stream in better quality. And it's $549 without the GPU, $599 with it, although we might come to the conclusion that the GPU is not worth the extra money if you put an additional stick of RAM in. Luca wants to know, is it true that NVIDIA GPUs are better at encoding and decoding than AMD? I don't know if they're better necessarily. I think they're better supported. So vMix, which is what I'm using right now, really prefers the NVIDIA GPUs because of those onboard encoders. So I have a GTX 1080 in this machine that's running the stream. And there are 3, I believe that they upped it recently with a driver update. There are 3 available encoders that work outside of the graphics processing. So for example, when I get my new connection, my new internet connection, we're going to start doing 4K. So I could have one encoder send a 4K signal to YouTube and another encoder send a 1080p one to Amazon, for example. And it won't impact performance anywhere else. And that's one thing that vMix seems to work really well with are those video encoders. And I guess the quality of those encoders has improved with the RTX series. But I mean, for my purposes, the 1080 is fine. And that was what was great about building this production computer, is that I upgraded the GPU in my gaming desktop upstairs and then used this GPU for it was a great repurposing. So it, even saved money there. So Lon Dog is having fried eggs and hot sauce for breakfast. That's tasty. It's lunchtime here. I'm getting hungry, so I may run out and grab some lunch in a little bit. So the GPU on this one, Mark, no, this is an AMD GPU, and it is so it's an AMD Ryzen processor with an RX 640 GPU. Yeah, folks, this is, I mean, okay, so let's go back to our benchmark, and if you go to Lon.TV/benchmarks, you can see what we're working on here. So let's go back to the spreadsheet, all right, and let's take a look. This is the TimeSpy benchmark. Okay. So now, this is what Jake got when he ran it earlier. And we got pretty much the same exact score now. That is crazy. So it's almost like, yes, it would be faster based on its base configuration. But it is only because the GPU has the faster memory. But when you add the second stick of RAM, I'm not even going to put the score in because it's pretty much the same score. It's running exactly the same. Yeah, I'm not even going to bother recording it because it's exactly what Jake got before. So what we set out to discover here, and I'll run the other one just for the heck of it. What we set out to discover here was whether or not the version with the GPU was worth the extra money. And the answer is no, because if you just put a stick of RAM in the other one, you get the same performance without the GPU. Isn't that crazy? All right, so let's go over to the other test. Let's modify this. And let's go to CloudGate. And the only thing I want to check, I'll just run it and see what we get. I'm just curious now. This is really interesting. Because the 4500U is as fast as their RX 640. That's crazy. But yeah, check it out. So when we put the extra RAM in, let me go back to my thing here. With the extra RAM in, we're getting the same performance without the GPU, just with the built-in graphics. Isn't that crazy? And I know it was working because this is the score it would have had with single-channel RAM without the GPU, because it's the same hardware. So that is really intriguing. Okay. A movie fan wants to know any adapter or antenna for laptops that can run a 5G connection. No, but we do have, I have to get to it. I have that Lenovo in that does have the 5G built in. I just don't have 5G near my house. So I gotta get to that one too. I have so much stuff that power outage really knocked me through a loop here. So 02214 Abel wants a new laptop, 15-inch. If you're looking for a low-cost one, this one's pretty good for 15 inches. I'm pretty happy with it. Hey, what happened? It knocked, oh. Guess what, folks? We got interrupted by the Norton LifeLock spam. Good Lord. Let's try this again. That's the one thing with these budget laptops. Sometimes I mean, it's gotten better over the years, but the pack-in software is just a real nightmare. The IdeaPad, the Ryzen 5. I haven't checked out the IdeaPad, but we did look at the 2-in-1 version of that, and it's great. It performs just like this one does. Oh, it's not running. Let's reset things here. What is going on, folks? Let's just reload that benchmark and see what happened. It just quit again on me. So I'll load that back up and see what we get here. Niraj Kumar says, why can't we get a 16 gigabyte version of it? Probably because they decided that consumer, they got to hit a price point, and that's how they hit it, by not putting the full RAM in. So you can get a 16 gigabyte version just by buying an 8 gig stick, which is what I would suggest you do. And I happen to have a link to the stick that I'm using in the Amazon description if you want to check that out. You only need one of them too, just an 8 gig stick. Pop it in there, boom, you got 16, and you're going to get better performance. Luca wants to know what I think of the Tesla Powerwall. I think they're pretty neat. For my house, I need a lot of them, like 3 or 4 of them. I priced it out. It was going to be very expensive. But part of me just wants to stick it to the power company. But the issue that I had with the power outage, I have a whole house generator now, so that's not a big deal. But my Comcast went out for a week because even though I had power, they didn't have power to the whole infrastructure for Comcast. And so that's what threw me off, was the fact that even though my power had returned, I had no internet because the infrastructure was still down from other parts of the town. So that's where I'm really eager for Starlink, to have that as my backup, because even my cellular connection here is lousy. So I was driving to a parking lot on the other side of town to upload stuff. And then it also impacted my ability to test things because we rely on the internet to do a lot of what we do, even just to put the stuff into the spreadsheet. And even when you're reviewing a laptop, like, it has to go online to demonstrate stuff. And if I'm running off a 1 megabit cellular connection, I can't demo the speed of the browser, for example. All those kinds of issues. So Loki wants to know, what would you need to upgrade this laptop? So I think the only thing you would need to do is put in the stick of RAM. You might want to make the NVMe hard drive larger, or put in a 2.5-inch SATA drive. That might be something you might want to do. But beyond that, that's it. Put that stick of RAM in and you're done. Simple as that. So I'm eager to see what this test comes back at, because sometimes you'll see a little bit of a difference between the two tests insofar as the scores aligning. So let's see what we get on this one when it's finished. Jim Harvey asks, will it edit video? Yeah, you can edit video on these. And this is what is hard to test, because this one would do a little better on video editing because it has a GPU with discrete video memory. However, it doesn't have a lot of discrete video memory, and it's not very powerful of a GPU compared to something that might be just slightly more expensive. So what I suggest for people that want to do video editing is to get like the $700 or $800 huge bulky gaming laptop, with a proper NVIDIA GPU, because those tend to be a little better performing. All right, so the CloudGate test has completed, and we got a score of 12,384. And let's go back to the spreadsheet. Again, you can pull this up and follow along at Lon.TV/benchmarks. And let's take a look at what we got out of the non-GPU one. Single channel was 10,989. Now remember, the other one, or the same one, well, the other one from this one, the dual channel version, let's go. I'm just making sure that it found the GPU. Yeah, so it was using the right GPU. All right, non-GPU dual channel. So this is the one right here. Let me just highlight this so we can keep it on track here. And I suspect that the score Jake got before is probably similar to what we got now, which was 12,000 and change. So let's see if I can find it on the list here. Yep, look at that. Just slightly better. Wow. That is crazy. So it is coming in pretty close to where it was before. So this is with 8 gigs of RAM, single channel, okay? 11,656. We got 12,384. This is all within the margin of error. So 61 frames per second versus 63 now. 67 on the without the stick versus 71 now. And about the same score on the CPU side on the physics test. So, I mean, there's no reason. This is going to save a lot of time on the video because there's no reason to buy the GPU one. It performs the same. It's crazy. And it's weird because like so here's your trade-off. You could put in an extra stick of RAM on the other one, or buy the GPU one and get pretty much the same performance. And actually, the non-GPU, when it's in, this is the bigger story. And this is why these tests are interesting. When you look at the score here, this one without the GPU is getting 20 to 30 frames per second more on the first two graphics tests than the one with the GPU. That is crazy. I got a question in from Leland C on the Amazon chat. How does this compare with a Chromebook for a second grader? It's a matter of whether or not you want to run Windows or Chrome OS. When you go with a Windows machine, you're going to get more storage. Because you'll need it because there's more, more of the operating system needs to be running there. For the most part, most schools now are using Chrome OS or Chrome or Google's stuff. So from the standpoint of performance, it should feel roughly the same. So it's not a bad choice, especially if you want to do more with it than just run the Google stuff. If it's just for the second grader, then I would say the Chromebook is the better option just because they can't put anything else on it. And there's a real advantage to the security of Chrome in the sense that Chrome OS is locked in and it doesn't do anything but run what Chrome OS can run. So often I recommend going with the Chromebook. So I have a second grader also, and she uses my Chromebook down here for some of her school stuff. And then the older kids actually get a Chromebook issued. But if you wanted to make use of the computer too, I think the Windows option might be the better route because you can install other software on there. All right, well, I think I have a lot of information collected here for sure. Let me take a couple more questions in the chat. So ProLogic, how's the screen quality? I think the screen's nice. And it was another question about the nits. I think it's probably around the 250 nits standpoint. I'll try to double check that. So it's not the brightest display. I'll turn the brightness all the way up here. It's not the brightest display, but it looks good. And what I like is that it's a 1080p IPS display. It looks good. It does look nice. And it's a matte finish, so it's not shiny. So you might like that too. Mark Smith says the only thing about the IdeaPad is the RAM is not upgradable. That is definitely a shortfall of those. The one that we looked at, the 2-in-1, the Lenovo, the Flex, whatever they call it, the Flex 5, the one on Amazon has 16 gigs and a pen. Great value. And that's the one I would point people at because it also performs really nicely. Murat says it's strange that 2 gigs of DDR5 VRAM can't be the same. The only thing I can think of here is that the GPU just isn't as fast as the GPU on board the APU of the AMD chip. It's really glad I could help, Leland. Good luck. Leland on the Amazon chat was just trying to figure out what's best for a second grader who will undoubtedly be doing exactly what my second grader will be doing, which is spending a good amount of time at home schooling. We're going to be doing hybrid, so we're starting, I guess, in about 2 weeks. We're going to be going in, she's going to go in 2 days a week, and then everyone's off Wednesday, and then another group goes in Thursday and Friday. So my daughter will be learning from home in a partially synchronous learning environment Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, where they'll be logging in via the Google stuff. So I'm going to have her use my Chromebook for that, just because it's less technical issues that I have to deal with. So that's the route I'm going to go with it. Jim Harvey wants to know if I have a recommendation for a budget video editor. I have a great recommendation, and it's not so budget, but it's free until you need more. DaVinci Resolve from Blackmagic, the 1080p version, totally free. And it's a robust video editor. I'm a Final Cut Pro guy on the Mac, and I'm an old dog with no ability to learn new tricks, but I've seen a lot of folks transition from Final Cut to DaVinci Resolve because it runs on the Mac also. And I'm starting to see people who are using Premiere go over there as well, because it's a little bit more stable, apparently, according to some folks. So I would play with that. It's super powerful, and you get a lot of features for free. So I would look at that. Mark Smith points out that you can lock down Chromebooks quite heavily. Yeah, and actually our school one-to-ones are locked down pretty heavily. So there's things that they can't even do when they're at home on the kids' network. Metro North Railfan, my Chromebooks run Windows 10 with a Celeron. Yeah, so you can coax them into running Windows for sure. Not something for the faint of heart, but it can be done for sure. Londog points out, yep, the bright displays use more battery power. That's for sure, and that is very true. And in many cases, they're more expensive for the manufacturer, so that's part of it. I haven't looked at the VivoBook Flip 14. I need to get one in, so I can't comment on something I haven't seen yet. So F3 RNS here, oh yeah, you are, yeah, if you go from an Atom N270 to a Ryzen 5 4500U, that is going to be a huge upgrade for sure. Ben asks about Neverware Cloudware. That's what turns an older machine into a Chromebook. I have used it. I've played with it a little bit, but I actually don't have hardware handy that would make good use of it. I have like some super old laptops, but nothing like recently old. Ed Horn is here, and good to see you, Ed. I'm going to be taking off in a minute, unfortunately. Mark Ramos says, a Chromebook in general can do web hosting or meetings. Yeah, I think the Duet's okay for doing meetings. It's tougher on the non-Intel stuff. It depends on how many people you've got coming in. But I would say the newer Intel chips do a little better with that, just because they have the video encoding in hardware. Some of the ARM ones do better than others, but the Intel ones tend to do a little better with those things. Have I checked out the new AMD ZenBooks? I have not, but I need to get some of those in as well, for sure. All right. Boy, the questions are coming in. Oh, Russell Lachard asks the magic question. Do I have any interest in the EA upcoming Star Wars game? Let me tell you my interest level in the new EA Star Wars game. My interest level in the new EA Star Wars game is so immense because I have been waiting for that game since I was like 5 years old when I first saw Star Wars. So I am totally into it. And the fact that it is shipping with VR built in is like, we're totally doing a live stream when that comes out. So I am beyond excited for that. And October can't come soon enough, because that is going to be, I mean, the VR thing alone, sold, you know, $39, that's it. That's a deal. So, all right. Okay. Well, folks, I got to jump off the stream here and get the next part of my day going. But I appreciate you all tuning in for today's stream as we were playing around with this stuff. And I am shocked. You know, this is going to be one of those things where when I do the review, I'm going to put it out there to say, this is what we found. What did we do wrong here that this one with the GPU performs worse than the one with it? Without. That's crazy. Totally crazy. So that's it. All right, folks. I'm sorry to not get to everybody's questions because there was a lot of people in today, so it's great to have so many people here. But definitely click the bell notification because I come back and do these streams all the time. And this is the fun stuff that I like doing. Everything I do is fun, but this is always fun to have you all with me as we're testing stuff. And I've got more things to review. I have more things to shoot. I've got a lot of work to do today. I will be back probably streaming a little later in the week. And what you can also do is if you go to my Amazon page, if you're watching on YouTube, let me see how this works, because if you can find that notification link, because I'm doing all these live streams on Amazon now as well. And what's fun about doing this on Amazon is that soon we're going to start getting like coupon deals and whatnot. So when we do a stream, it's not going to be Home Shopping Club, but there'll be some kind of deal you can get when that happens. And so if you go to Lon.TV/Amazon shop, that'll take you to my Amazon page. And if you get the notifications on Amazon come over pretty much right away whenever I go live. And I do live on both platforms simultaneously. And so if you follow me there, you'll get a push notification on your on your Amazon app. Even if you're overseas, it's fine. You can still watch me on US Amazon. So it'll work across all over the world. So that is how that works. So yeah, so we're in good shape. So my to-do list for this morning has been completed. And this actually makes the review easier because we don't even need to talk about the GPU one. It just doesn't perform as well. And we're going to have to spend some time on benchmarks because that really does show the disparities here between them. I am going to check Jake's footage that he shot because now that I know that this one performs the same, it'll be interesting to see, or well, depending on what it is, but generally it'd be interesting to see now how the other one fares versus this one on some of the games in the real world environment there. So that's what I'm going to check out next. So perfect. All right. Well, I thank you all for tuning in. I would also like to extend a hearty thank you to Comcast for not taking my stream down today. We actually had a stream go without any interruptions. How about that? Usually we get at least a couple. So we're in good shape. All right, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate your support and your viewership. And yeah, hit the notification bell, and I will come back and I'll let you spend part of our work days together. We can work together like study hall. I can work on my thing. You can work on your thing. Just let it run. Pretty cool. All right, everybody. I will talk to you all very soon. Bye-bye to the Amazon folks, and goodbye to